Welcome to a very special edition of Crawford County Outdoors. I'm Dwayne Kohler, and I say it's a very special edition because it really is for several reasons. One, Lisa, new kitchen. This is amazing.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. Second, there's been some changes in the laws, and so our hunters coming up this year, I think there's going to be things you need to know about. So Don Williams from Pheasants Forever is going to get us up to date on all of that here, and we're going to go to him first. But most importantly, this is our 100th episode of Crawford County Outdoors.
So excited to be part of that.
You're making something special, I understand, for that. So I'm really looking forward to that. So we'll talk to Dawn first, and we're coming back to Lisa.
Sounds good.
So stick with us. Welcome to a very special edition of Crawford County Outdoors. I'm Dwayne Kohler, and a lot's been in the news lately about hunting season coming up next year. Pheasants Forever, we're going to have some footage a little bit later for you from a Pheasants Forever event, but Don Williams is joining us from Pheasants Forever. Don, welcome to Crawford County Outdoors, and it's good to meet you.
Thank you very much, Dwayne.
And I think we met at the kids' hunting event last fall, and we had someone out there with a camera, and that was a blast. I got a kick out of all the dogs and all the kids lining up for a picture at the beginning, and everybody smiling. The dogs were all over the place, and those events. Well, let me ask you one thing. I love the Pheasants Forever slogan. No kid left indoors, right?
Right.
Talk about that for a sec.
Well, we see too many kids indoors and on their video games and not experiencing the outdoors like they used to. We think being in the outdoors gives them a moral base and keeps them out of trouble and gives them something to do and goals to achieve. And that keeps them out of trouble.
Now, volunteering to come out for the event, maybe this is a little secret. I don't know if I should be telling secrets or not, but I think the volunteers get as much fun out of a deal like that as do the kids who are maybe getting out for their first time or one of very few times maybe they've gotten out to chase some birds.
Oh yes, it's a great venue to run the dogs and get the dogs on birds. And I like to keep my dog on birds all year round, doing different events, hunt tests, field trials, veterans hunts, and youth events. It really helps the dogs stay in their prime.
One thing, the dogs don't get quite as much retrieving practice at that event as they do maybe out at other events, but they certainly flushed plenty of birds and there was lots of guns going off, but the retrieving part happened a little bit, but not as much as some other type of events.
Right. Well, the kids are just starting out, most of them, ages 12 to 16. We take the younger ones and we put them through a little bit of skeet shooting first. To get them acclimated to the guns and a little gun safety course. And they have to be hunter trapper educated through the Game Commission before they can even go with us. But they get to shoot more, and that gets them interested in the sport.
So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So lots of changes that we've been hearing about recently from the Game Commission related to pheasant season, I guess, and other things too. And here's my regular hunter guide. The part that troubles me a little bit is if there's additional restrictions or making it harder for folks to hunt pheasants, is that going to steer our younger generation away from the sport? I hope not. I mean, I hope not, but what's going on, and what's it look like down the road?
Well, two things have happened recently. First of all, due to a budget crunch, the Game Commission has closed two of their game farms, one here in western Pennsylvania in Crawford County near Cambridge Springs. And they've also this year will reduce the number of pheasant stockings, but those stockings down to 170,000 this year will be on game lands. So if you hunt game lands, you shouldn't see any difference. What you will see is those cooperative areas that weren't published, those areas will probably not get birds.
So in the big picture of things, now an additional thing is now us pheasant hunters have to go and buy a separate tag. I guess kind of like fishermen for trout season. You buy a separate tag just if you're gonna include trout in your fishing season. You got to buy a special tag for trout.
That's correct. The budget crunch has made the Game Commission look very closely at their budgets, and what they found is the put and take nature of pheasant stocking is very costly, up to $5 to $6 million a year. So if they figured we had about 80,000 pheasant hunters, and they've imposed a $25 pheasant stamp, just like a trout stamp. And what that will do is offset some of the cost, not all of it, but some of the cost of the pheasant stocking program. They've also done one other thing, and that is, instead of keeping a brooding stock of 40,000 birds over the winter, what they've decided to do is to buy day-old chicks in the spring and raise those through the summer and then release those birds every year. The other option would be to buy adult birds and release those. They're looking into that maybe in the future.
So the day-old chicks, that probably reduces some length of the work that the pheasant farm's got to do, and it makes it a little bit easier, probably a little bit less expensive for them.
And that is correct. Keeping that brooding stock and feeding 40,000 birds over the winter is expensive. Having the personnel on board to do that is expensive. You not only have to pay their salary, but also their medical costs, their pension plans. Now, most of those personnel have been shifted to other jobs within the Game Commission, but some of them retired or took early retirement.
So why this all happen? I mean, is there a big picture, that folks maybe don't understand?
Well, people don't realize in Pennsylvania that the Pennsylvania Game Commission, and also the Fish Commission, by the way, is a model for the North American Wildlife Management Program. In that, there are no tax dollars or general fund dollars allocated to the budget of the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Although the legislature and the governor has oversight of their budget, there's no tax dollars going to it. The funding of the Game Commission is solely from hunter license fees, from timber, gas, and mineral resources on the game lands, and a rebate of Pittman-Robinson funds, which is a excise tax on firearms and ammo. So actually, the hunter is paying the whole budget of the Game Commission.
I've heard people in the past complain, I want to go walk my dog and it's deer season, I'm afraid to go out. Well, the hunters are paying for the game lands. I mean, am I right about that?
That's right. We're paying for the game lands. There's 1.5 million acres, but the general public can use those game lands anytime they want, just like a state forest, a national forest, or a state park, except that those other three things are paid for by your tax dollars, where the game lands aren't.
So I guess the big picture is maybe inevitability, that the budget crunch was inevitable here. And so down the road, I mean, is this just one more step that it's getting worse for us hunters, or what do you think?
In my opinion, the budget crunch should have never happened. And the reason is the legislature, especially the House, approves the budget, but also they have to approve the increase in license fees. Now, if you look at it, the Pennsylvania Game Commission hasn't had a license fee increase since 1998. Now, if you think about that, how would you run a household or a business without an increase in prices over the last 19 years? Almost impossible. Inflation has gone up. Their dollar, the value of the dollar that they receive has gone down 30%. Plus, they have all of these other things that are coming in, such as invasive species, West Nile virus, chronic wasting disease, that weren't budgeted. A lot of people say, well, they had the gas, the Marcellus Shale. Well, the Marcellus Shale did tide them over. But if you look now, gas prices are down. Some of those royalties are petering out. The flow from some of the wells has been shut off. Wood prices are down, so even timbering some of the game lands does not provide enough funds for the Game Commission.
So I don't have any grandkids. I hope to have some someday. But what's the future look like for the sport? Is there still going to be something for my grandkids that I hope to have someday? Is there going to be something for them to do?
The sport looks good, and here's what we're trying to do. Last year there was a bill that was passed by the Senate, went to the House, but the House did not act on it. They let it die, and that was to allow the Pennsylvania Game Commission to set their own fee structure for hunting licenses, and that would allow them in a 3-step process to raise the fees over a 5-year period to balance their budget. That wasn't passed, so they've had to cut services and projects, and the game farm and the pheasant stocking program was one of the first ones hit. So that's where we are. Now we have a new Senate Bill 192. It's passed the Senate Game and Fisheries Committee. It's passed 3 readings in the Senate, and they're waiting for a companion bill to come from the House, and they'll attach that Senate Bill 192 to it, send it back to the House, and hopefully the House will pass that bill.
So let me clarify, so make sure I understand one thing. Now, the having to buy a special pheasant tag, this does not involve youth hunters. They're still able to go and get it. If they go out with their dad or their granddad or whatever, they can still get a pheasant without having to buy the tag while they're a junior. Is that correct?
That is correct. They do not need a special pheasant permit to hunt permit if they're a junior license holder.
So still Pheasants Forever, going to get those kids out there for their first hunt. We got volunteers that are happy to take them. And again, as I said before, that was a blast. I got a big kick out of that. And my dog, as you said, it's great work for the dog to extend that season out for the dog a little bit more. Probably the best part's for the kid, though, to get them out there with an experienced guide and dog to give them a better chance to get a crack at a bird or two.
What the Game Commission and we have found is getting the kids out for pheasant is probably a little bit better than getting them out for deer, where they may sit there and not see a deer all day, or if they see 1 or 2, they get discouraged quicker. But pheasants, you're usually on a pheasant within 30 minutes if you have a good dog, it's quicker gratification, let's say, for the kids to get a shot. They may not get the bird right away. They might need a little practice, but there's more action involved, I think, in upland bird hunting.
Now, this is probably 20 years ago, but I remember taking out my nephew for his, well, it's probably more like 15 years ago, his first time out, and trying to get him ready and get that shot. And I know he missed by a mile, but everybody, all the other dads around him made sure that bird was on the ground, and everyone patted him on the back for that. So and that's okay. You know, we wanted him to be successful that day, and also the same thing happened at deer season. Everybody was real, you know, one got shot, and we looked and looked, and everybody looked for hours and finally found that deer laying in a creek, you know, about a mile away. But yeah, I'm with you. We want to get those kids some success early on. Give them a reason to want to come back.
Another thing that Pheasants Forever is supporting, besides supporting this bill coming out of the Senate for an increased license fee and control of the license fees by the Game Commission, is the Game Commission is looking into reestablishing the stocking program for quail, for bobwhite quail. Unbeknownst to some people, and it's a secret of mine, my dog goes to Louisiana every January and February and hunts on a quail farm as a guide dog on a quail preserve. And since he's been doing that, we have been finding quail in the Allegheny National Forest. I'm not going to tell you where that is, but I've been harvesting quail for 4 years out of the Allegheny National Forest. Quail are another type of bird that youth would really enjoy hunting, and if we can get those reestablished in Pennsylvania, we would be very happy with that.
Since we're talking about a couple of other birds here, what about grouse? I haven't seen many grouse in the last few years. What's the story there?
Well, back in the early 90s, West Nile virus was introduced in New York City, and went across upstate New York into Pennsylvania, and now is spreading through central Pennsylvania. We found that West Nile virus affects crows, but it also affects grouse, and it has a devastating effect on young grouse, meaning only 20 to 10% of those infected do not survive their first year. West Nile virus is mosquito-borne. It's transferred by mosquito bites, and the mosquitoes get into the grouse feathers, and that's transferred to the poults.
Someday they're going to be coming back, we hope?
Yes. Lisa Williams, no relation to me, with the Game Commission, has been doing a study. We're looking into ways at combating West Nile virus and other diseases that are affecting us that we never expected to have to put money into.
Don, maybe I should have started off the conversation with this, but you're real involved, not just with Pheasants Forever, but with other organizations, and the reason, why do you know so much about all this stuff?
Well, I'm a life member of the Grouse Society, member of Pheasants Forever. I sit on the state board of the National Wild Turkey Federation. I'm a liaison to another group called the Pennsylvania Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs. That's based in Harrisburg, and they are a lobbying and conservation organization that has been there for many years. They have a lobbyist on board. They also publish a newsletter every 2 weeks, and if you're a $15 annual member, you can get that information every 2 weeks online. Now, what people don't realize is that that federation follows almost 280 bills per year just in Pennsylvania that affects hunting, fishing, conservation, and gun ownership. People don't realize that there's many bills out there that affect them, and they have a say in that, but they don't if they're not informed. Right now, since January, there's 113 bills introduced in the Pennsylvania House that affect those areas. Wow. So if you want to be informed, you need to get with that organization.
So I'm a big fan of having folks join their local sportsman's club. There's a lot of fun things there. There's great activities for kids, and at Pheasants Forever also with activities for kids. But so the collection of game of sportsmen's clubs gets together through that association that you mentioned, and that's a good way to. So our local club here in Meadville, they kind of specialize in skeet. You know, there's
right.
ones that do pistol shooting, there's ones that do trap shooting. You know, so across the board, you know, this is watching out for sort of all the things that are of interest
right.
to us sportsmen. Is that right?
And the main thing with all of those organizations is habitat preservation and habitat improvement. That's a key for all of these upland game species and all species. And not only the game species, but the 400 other species that are non-game that the Pennsylvania Game Commission is in charge of.
Well, Don, thanks very much for being with us here today on Crawford County. It was very informative. We're going to have to do this again sometime to catch up, because
I'd love to, Dwayne.
Sound like the rules keep changing. So
yes, they do.
Well, thanks, Don. That was very important information, and I'm glad to hear. I was a little more nervous before I talked to Don than after. So, Lisa, what are you working on today?
We are making cheesy garlic meatballs, and it's a twist on regular meatballs, and of course I use deer meat, but they're really good and nice appetizer if you want to take this to a party. Family loved it.
Where'd you find deer meat? Oh, I was kidding.
I was going to say.
Lots of that around your house.
A lot of that, yeah.
So how'd you get it started?
Okay, what I did was, and I've already made the meatballs. This is a pound of deer burger, and I added a half a cup of breadcrumbs, and then I went on to do an egg.
Okay.
I did about a half a teaspoon of salt, about maybe a half a tablespoon of parsley,
okay.
eighth of a teaspoon of pepper. And the interesting thing that I added was 2 to 3 tablespoons of pizza sauce. Okay. So you mix that up and make your meatballs, but there's a secret ingredient. Okay, in the middle of each one of those meatballs is a little piece of mozzarella. And you can buy these pearl mozzarella balls, and they're great, and you shove one in there. And then what I did after that is I put a little bit of olive oil in the pan, okay. and I just fried them up a little.
Okay. So that kind of sears that outside, like with venison. You got to get it, you know, kind of like crispy on the outside quickly.
Yep. And that's what we did. So the next step is you get yourself some pizza dough. Now you can make it, you can buy it packaged. This was just, you know, the kind that you buy in the round tube that made it easier. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap each one of those in pizza dough. Okay, so are you ready? Can you wrap?
Yes.
And you know what
I'm a rapper.
I was going to say, are you a rapper, Dwayne?
Not the music kind. But
okay.
Yes, if it involves food, yeah.
Okay.
So you break a corner off?
Break a piece off, sure. And what you're going to do is you're just going to wrap it around, stretch it, and pinch the little pieces together.
So that there's like no meatball showing? Is that?
No meatball showing, yep.
Okay. I'm
So you're
picking
just-
a nice big meatball.
Right, and I let this sit out so it's a little warmer, so it's easier to work with. And yeah, just kind of like that. And then what I'm going to do while you're starting that one is I'm going to spray a cast iron skillet with some spray.
Okay.
Okay. So that this doesn't stick to it, because we're going to stick them in our cast iron skillet.
Maybe I'm not as good at wrappers as I thought I was.
Oh,
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Practice makes perfect,
I'm getting
Dwayne.
there, okay.
And we're just going to place them in there, and we're just going to continue.
So while we're wrapping, Lisa, tell
Sure.
us a story about this beautiful new kitchen.
Oh, well, we're really happy. We decided, one
all right?
day, that's fine. Yeah, just pinch it together, that we were ready to update the kitchen. And it's not complete. There's still a few things that need to be done, some painting, some furniture, some rugs and things like that. But we started in February. It only took about 5 weeks. We've got new flooring, new cabinets, new appliances, countertop, and we're very, very pleased with the results.
Well, it's wonderful. It really is beautiful.
Thank
and
you.
I can see that our regular fans are going to be jealous. They're going to want to have a kitchen like this where they're cooking. And
Well, we're happy, and it turned out even better than what we expected. So
one other thing too, I heard from who told me, somebody, that we've set a new fashion trend in the Crawford County area, that camo's now like the color, like orange is the new black.
Right.
That show on
Camo
whatever.
is the new.
Camo's the new color to wear. Yeah.
Well,
so-
you know what? I'm
so
all
that's
for
good.
that, because camo doesn't just come in one color.
That's right.
As you can see, I don
Yeah.
the pink.
You have the pink camo today?
I do, and I've got the pink sunglasses, camo sunglasses,
Yeah.
and yeah. Well, you know what? You can't get better than camo. I mean,
I'm with you on that one. Okay, so yes, I appreciated that suggestion, whenever that comment,
yeah,
evaluation,
me too.
whenever that came
Sure,
up.
sure. Yeah, we like our camo around here.
Okay, so I'm not sure my skills are increasing as I'm working.
You're doing great, Dwayne. You might not be taking enough dough. I know you're trying to make sure that we have enough. It's hard to gauge, but you're doing it.
We do have a lot of do-it-yourself kind of projects on
That's right.
our Crawford County Outdoors
But you're used to
series
power
here.
tools?
But there's no power tools involved, no cutting.
No left-handed can
saws.
openers.
Okay, so this is more like an art project from school.
Sure, yeah, and I would be familiar with that.
Okay.
That looks good. So like I said, we've got our, we're going to put this in the cast iron skillet. The oven is turned on, because we're going to use the oven for this, to 350. But before we put it in, we're going to brush it with some garlic butter.
Ah.
Yeah, so that's where the garlic comes into play.
Okay.
And it's going to smell fantastic when it's in the oven and it's cooking. Like I said, I think this would be a great appetizer to take, or something to take to a party, because in the end, what you're going to do is you're going to dip it in some heated pizza sauce.
Oh, yeah.
So when I made these the other day, I found this recipe on the internet, and when I made these the other day, they were a hit in this house. So I think you're going to like them. And I'm sure someone might show up to eat.
You might find some other samples. That usually happens around.
It usually does.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
I bet I can figure it out.
I
Because
bet.
the stuff's really good, that's why.
Well, some good recipes we've found, haven't we?
We should figure out a way to come up with a Crawford County Outdoors cookbook, Lisa,
You know what? I think that's a great idea.
We should, yeah. Because I do get a lot of people asking about Lisa's recipes.
They're not always mine. Some I do invent, but for the most part, there are some shared recipes that I've gathered over the years from other people. So we have a little bit left over. Do you have enough?
I think so.
Okay.
Now that I'm getting to be a highly skilled rapper.
He is a highly skilled rapper. As long as you continue to wrap this way, I think we're going to be okay.
That would be the best.
I might be
yeah,
afraid
that
of
would
what
be-
I
yeah,
might
if I tried
hear.
something else, yeah.
Try something else. That looks good.
I may not be the fastest rapper,
That's okay.
but we're all about precision, not speed,
That's
right? We want quality.
Quality. Looks good. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're just going to kind of slide this out of the way. And I'm going to brush these.
Whoops, I see I made a little mistake on that.
That's okay. You want to fix it?
I can fix it. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to brush these. I chopped up some garlic. and put it in some butter, melted them together. And we're just gonna brush them on each of the meatballs.
The difficult part, about being here is like the anticipation and yeah.
The anticipation builds as I add another ingredient that you
I
can
know.
smell. Our viewers don't get that option to smell what we can smell. And you put that garlic in the oven, or you start brushing it on with some butter, and wow. Okay, I think we're ready.
They'll take our word for it that it's really good.
Sure. And we're going to stick these in the oven, 350 preheated oven for 20 to 25 minutes. You want to watch them to make sure they're not getting overdone.
Okay.
And we'll get that in there. We'll be ready to eat in no time.
Okay, looking forward to that.
Okay.
So Lisa, that looks amazing.
Yeah. Are you ready to try them?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to plate them up first.
So joining us is Landon Beck. Landon, while your mother's doing that, how's it going this year? Baseball season underway now?
Yeah, good.
He's having a good season. So, you could plate these up this way. Of course, I got out our deer plates. They match the kitchen.
Was this your deer that we're having here?
Not sure.
Say yes. Yeah. That'll make it extra good if it was yours. Okay.
You could take this to a party.
Yeah.
And we heated up some pizza sauce. And then, you guys ready?
Yes.
All right. Now they're going to be hot, and we can give you some pizza sauce too. So
there's a deer on the plate and a deer on the plate.
that's
Isn't
right.
that interesting?
2 on the plate.
Two deer on the plate.
Yes. And I'll get you some sauce.
Now, do you break it apart? And
Well,
put the
you know
sauce
what?
on?
Because they're so hot, you could actually just dip it in, but because they just came out of the oven, I would suggest here, Landon, we'll put some of that. Oh, show the inside of that
Oh,
so
look
they
at
can see that
that.
cheese, that
Yeah.
little special ingredient.
Maybe I'll try that.
Put this on the side for you.
How about that?
Yeah, but if they're not fresh out of the oven, you can just dip them right in your sauce. Grab myself a fork. Yeah, that little mozzarella pearl in the middle.
And this cheese kind of
See how
stretched
cute
there.
that is? They're hot. Careful, guys.
They're good though.
Thanks. I don't want to burn myself.
Lisa, that's wonderful.
Thanks.
I bet it was the expert wrapping, probably that really put it over the top. Well, I gotta
I think
finish
that's
this,
what it
but-
was.
You think that's what it was? Well, I'm going to finish this, but first I got to say thanks to everybody for watching us today on Crawford County Outdoors. Thanks to Dawn for joining us from Pheasants Forever. Lisa, thanks as always for the great recipes.
You're
Landon,
welcome.
good to see you again.
Happy 100th episode.
We'll see you next time on Crawford County Outdoors.